Fortnite Chapter 5 Season 4 drops on Friday. So here are the things that I want in the season from a competitive perspective. This is not for the pub players out there. Apologies if I am a little bit shiny. It's unbelievably hot in the UK right now. I have a fan going, windows open. I'm trying to do my best. But the first thing is medallions. Now for me, I think Chapter 5, one of the most frustrating things out there has been the medallions generally. So I want to pinpoint this from two different perspectives. Firstly is of an average player. Let's take an average competitive player such as myself. I am, sometimes getting into the top 10,000, sometimes top 5, sometimes top 1,000. A lot of the times, playing horribly, not even entering the top 50k of a tournament. There's a lot of players around my skill level when it comes to playing solo cash cups, duo cash cups, and whatnot. So I feel like what I'm about to say is a good representation of a large percentage of the competitive player base. Now for us, if you go into a lobby, the people who are getting the medallions are already the best players. So chances are the top 5 players who enter that game, 5 out of 100, they're going to be the ones who are going to get the medallions. So you immediately off of the bat have the best players in the lobby with an advantage in a medallion, which buffs them in some way, but also with a mythic item. And so in the instance of this season, if you land at the rig, you get a mythic AR and infinitely recharging shields, which is obviously a massive advantage. So where that plays in for more of an average player like myself is if I'm playing a tournament and I'm in a low elo game, I could probably get that, wipe the lobby out and move on. But which, by the way, hella fun. I'm not going to say it's not fun for a competitive environment. But if you're playing in a higher elo game, what tends to happen is the top 1 of 5 players, wherever that is, gets a medallion, maybe two mythics, and they just become the Thanos of the lobby. They become unkillable. They become just the best player out there, and the rest of the game kind of turns into just avoiding them. If you press your map button, you can see where they are. You just run away from them the whole game, and eventually it comes to the point where you can't run away from them. If it's like the 6th or 7th or 8th zone where it gets relatively small and everyone's pushed together, and at that point, it's kind of just RNG, right? If you're going to get W keyed by the best player, there's a chance you could fight them if they had good loot, just regular on balance loot. Maybe they have a slightly higher rarity, fine. But with the shield coin advantage, with the nitro coin advantage that is currently in the season, it's just, you're not going to win that. Like 99% of the time you're not. So now the best players in the lobby are buffed way more than they should be, making them even harder to kill when you're already struggling to kill them. So if you are the best player in the lobby, you have a way bigger advantage than everyone else. And that tends to lead to some frustrating gameplay. As I mentioned, you're just trying to run away and it becomes like a bit RNG. Do you get keyed by them or not? Because it's just a matter of time. Like eventually that player is going to key you. For the top level gameplay, it's kind of exciting to watch. Maybe the storylines are good. Who's landing where? Who's going to get what advantage? Grimgate coin, for example, we talked a lot about in Chapter 5, Season 2, when Peterbot and Poyo got it. Who's landing there? Sure, there's some interesting dialogue, but the actual gameplay perspective is really boring. You just watch, they have a massive advantage. Oh, they're probably just going to win. They get Nash coin. For me, doing analysis videos as well on people who have medallions, it's just like that player gets the best loot, and then the actual gameplay becomes way, way, way more boring. It's like, okay, he has the shield coin so he can run in your box. He has the mythic AR, so every time he opens a fight, it's 100 damage. And then with nitro, he can just sprint in. So even from like an analytical perspective, medallions and these kind of buffs, especially mythics as well, in my eyes, not a big fan. So for next season, Chapter 5, Season 4, I would like to see no medallions. This way, the drop spots are much more balanced. I would also, by the way, get those mythics out. I'm happy having no mythics in too. But I know a lot of people like them. But, the way I like to have some drop spots be better than others is based on materials, chests, and just loot generally. And obviously positioning as well. Maybe mobility on the map. Whatever that is, there's so many advantages to some POIs that you don't need advantages that also include having an insane AR or having an insane weapon, having like an insane buff, whether it be a medallion as well. So that's the number one thing I would like to see in tournaments. Keep that kind of stuff in ranked and in pubs if you want to for the fun. That's amazing. But for tournaments specifically, let's get the medallions and maybe the mythics out. Balance, number 2. Now, if you've watched the trailer, I won't put it here just in case because I'm just going to put other gameplay in. It's a Marvel season. The chances are there's going to be some insanely broken stuff added in. We'll need to see what that actually is when the game launches on Friday, and I'll obviously have some big content out for then. But I want things to be balanced. In particular because we have global championships next season. So, there's not an FNCS that most people can play. There's a lot of tournaments, and I've heard there's a lot of really good tournaments coming, which I can't discuss. But FNCS Global Championships, the biggest tournament of the year, is to be played. So I want a good meta for that. Now, this season has had one of the worst, actually no, I'm going to say it had the worst competitive meta, or it's basically been the worst competitive season of all time. There's a lot of seasons, one of them's got to be the worst. I hope Epic Games has looked at this season and, maybe learned a little something. Said the feedback's not been that great from competitive. I know a lot of the casuals have been complaining. I know a lot of the casuals like it, but I think this is probably the season that's had one of the most complaints ever. There's been a lot of problems. I'm not going to go and list them all. That's one of the podcast topics we just talked about an hour ago, which will be up on the Fantasia channel. But one of the things that I want to see for Globals is a good meta. Now, my concern here is that, of course, it's a Marvel season, so there's going to be broken stuff, but also I wonder if there's any selling point from Epic Games to Marvel to say, we have this massive tournament, it's a big esports event, we'd love to show off the season there, maybe with items or with weapons, whatever that may be. So I'm slightly concerned. They're not just going to take every Marvel weapon out, and I don't want them to, which I'll come back to in a second, but any Marvel themed weapon that's in the game has to be well balanced. So the way I'm looking at this is, this current season has a ton of stuff in pubs that is not in ranked and competitive. Awesome, amazing. Took a long time to get there, but it's a really good change Epic made to finally resplit the loot pools between ranked and pubs. So what I hope they do is, for all of these really strong busted items that are currently in the loot pool, or sorry, will be in the loot pool, I'm not entirely sure what they are yet because the season has not dropped. All those busted stuff, just keep them out of ranked and tournaments from the get-go. Some of them will be really obvious. Please just keep them out this time. We don't want Fists and Nitro, something along those lines, back in for the first two kind of starter tournaments of the year, or of the season, sorry. Then we have another tier, which is just lots of Marvel-y themed items, which are way more balanced. So think, for example, Kinetic Blades from Chapter 4. Really, really loved mobility item, one of the most balanced ever. But there could just be a Marvel equivalent, or something along that balance that fits the meta really well, that can stay in. It's still like a competitively balanced item. A bunch of those, which would make the competitive meta really good. I'm just using Kinetic Blade as an example of like power more than anything else. Fits the meta really well. Awesome. Great. Keep them in. And then you have the more busted stuff, you just take that out. And I hope that's been planned ahead of time so that there's not this kind of awkward period where you go, what's the meta going to look like in global championships? Or we're going to have a horrific meta with potentially a lot of overpowered stuff. So that's my hope. Number 2, balance for global championships and not anything too broken. The next is, as I mentioned, keep ranked split. Little hint to it there. This season, for the most part, and for this whole year, I'm trying to think how long that went. They took Siphon out, and then it's maybe been like a year of ranked mode where it's been the exact same loot pool as pubs, which is awful, by the way. This season, they made some really good changes, which was splitting ranked mode up, tournaments, customs we can play again, which shouldn't be giving them praise for that. Quite frankly, that should have never left. But yeah, splitting ranked loot pool is something that they've just done recently, which I'm really, really happy about, again, because now we can actually play ranked without it being GTA 6. And keep it that way, and keep the meta good. That's it. I didn't play almost any rank this season because it was so unenjoyable. And towards the end of the season, when they split the loot pools, I did start playing again, which is a shame because I played a lot of tournaments, and I like to play solo ranked. It's one of the best ways to get good at fighting. So I was trying to practice a lot, got boring. So I hope for next season they keep that ranked split. It seems to be the decision that they're going to stick with, but yeah, fingers crossed for that. Next is general map changes. Now, I think based on the trailer that we've seen so far, the top right of the map is already changing, which is really, really cool, because top right of the map, I don't know about you, but it's just been like one of the most uninteresting parts, because it has just obviously never changed through the entire chapter. I'm trying to think if it's changed through like the entire chapter, actually, throughout the 3 seasons that's been there. I'm not sure. Either way, it's so uninteresting. There's a couple launch pads, which is good to rotate around, but there's almost never anyone in that area already. So I hope balanced new POIs there. But the main part of this is I hope that it's not a centralized map again, because this season, all of the powerful items, all of the powerful stuff, the cactuses for your shields, everything was in the new biome. It was all down to the south. So all of the best teams were so congested into one area, which is kind of boring. Again, kind of goes back to like the W keyed stuff. If you're a good team, you probably landed in the south, and if you're a bad team and you try to land in the south, you'll probably get W keyed by some of the good teams who will almost definitely be landing around you. So I hope next season we have a lot more like evenly distributed, stronger POIs, so that the map feels a little bit more fair. You know, I don't really like the way this season where everything was to the south at all. So that's kind of the map hope for next season. I was editing and then I realized I forgot to talk about DMRs. Now, DMRs are insanely boring competitively. You know, if you play casual games, maybe zero build, you might like a DMR just for tagging people at long range, but they create a ton of problems when it comes to competitive, because with the new bullet drop that was introduced in Chapter 5, it's essentially just a must-carry weapon. So in order to get tags at long range, you use an AR, use a pistol, you're not going to get much. But with the DMR, you can get massive damages at long range. So it essentially just creates a surge trading meta where everyone's just sitting in the massive Trulex towers, trading with DMRs, and it's really boring. If you take them out, like in Chapter 5 Season 1, where they weren't in, you have a meta where fighters and people who are better at fighting can take strategic fights around the edge of the map and things like that in order to rack up their damage against Storm Surge, as the thresholds are slightly lower. So no DMRs, please. So there are my main things I want to see for next season. Let me know down below what you're looking for competitively. If you're a casual player, let me know what you're looking for casually as well, because I'm sure it's going to be in a season which brings a ton of interest. Catch you later. Peace.